Fader Culture, what's going on? I'm Agent Barone. We got my man Chris here on the chair. Today we're gonna be running down the steps on how to do a burst fade or Mohawk fade, whatever y'all wanna call it. Before we get started, make sure you hit that thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. With that said, let's jump right into this tutorial. Alright guys, again, thank y'all so much for tuning in to another tutorial. As usual, all the steps and every single tool that we use is linked in the description down below. Feel free to check that out. We're going to start off by damping the hair a little bit to get it in its neutral position. Make sure you are combing the hair according to the cowlick. And we're going to begin at the fringe, at the very middle section, and work our way back as this is a faux hawk look. Grabbing just small sections at a time. Notice the space gap right here between my fingers. As you can see, I'm going to use this as a guideline as I work my way back. That gap is going to start to close slightly because you do want to leave the fringe a little bit longer. If the hair is really thick, you can section horizontally like I'm doing here. Now to start giving it that faux hawk shape, we're going to start angling the edges of the actual mohawk to help blend in towards the sides. As you can see, my fingers are like at a 45-degree angle, and that's the position that I'm going to keep working my way back. And do the exact same for the other side. And we're still going to cross check our work by now coming in vertically. Using my number 4 guard lever fully open, we're going to start cleaning out the sides and adding more shape to that mohawk. Make sure you are combing after every couple of strokes to neutralize the hair. And this is the highest guard that we're going to use on the side, so now we know that we're going to fade up to a number 4. As you can see, the mohawk doesn't transition as nicely to the sides. It still got this real blocky shape. So now we're going to come in with the number 1 guard lever fully open, and we're going to do the clipper over comb technique. And the reason I always encourage people to use a guard on there and even opening up the lever is it just acts as a safety net, is because if you were to use no lever, you can potentially cut more than you initially want to. And we're going to follow that shape all the way to the back. Now, using no guard lever completely closed, we're going to come in and set our first guideline. Right where that curvature at the temple peak area is, we're going to start about in the middle of that. Make sure you are constantly brushing your area and just do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Now we're going to open the lever completely and make our second guideline. Take that up about 1 inch or so and just make sure that you are running it parallel to the one underneath it. And I'm cutting in this position just to ensure that I am still cutting against the grain. Now with my number 1 guard lever still fully open, we're going to go ahead and create our third guideline. Stay easy and try not to dig these guidelines so much in, as that will only make it more difficult when we come back down and try to fade them out. Now with my number 2 guard lever still completely open, we're going to continue the process. And with this guard, what I like to do is exaggerate that flick out motion so you really don't leave a hard guideline. It almost already blends into that number 4, but we're still going to come back right now with the number 3 and just clean it up, make it that much tighter. Like I mentioned earlier, now we're going to use the number 3 lever still completely open and just finish connecting the side to the top. We're pretty much done setting up the guidelines. By now you should have the first one that we created with the 0, the second that we created with the lever completely open, and the third that we created with the number 1 guard completely open. We're going to start with that top one and work our way down. Using my 1.5 guard, I'm going to close that lever just slightly, putting it into a 3/4 position. It's basically somewhere in between the half and fully open position. And using mainly the corners of the clipper, we're going to attack that top guideline. Take your time with this process. I still get asked in the comments below how long does a haircut usually take me in the shop, and usually it's anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes, and that's with beard and everything involved. But like I said, just take your time and trust the process. Again, the steps are in the description below in case you want to screenshot them and just follow along that way, or take them along with you to the barbershop. Now with my half guard lever still in that 3/4 position, we're going to attack that second line coming down, using mainly again just the corners. And if you haven't noticed, when I clean out my canvas, I leave the lever fully open and setting up the steps. And now that I'm working my way back down, I'm going to leave the lever in that 3/4 position and just change out the guards. This step, however, does create a faint line right above it, but do not take this guard any higher, as we will come back right now with the number 1 guard and erase that line. Like I mentioned earlier, now we're going to use the number 1 guard lever still in that 3/4 position, and we're going to attack that faint line that half guard created. And again, it is critical that you brush after every couple strokes, as you can see your canvas a lot cleaner when you're working throughout the head. Now for that last line, the most tedious line, we're going to use a 3-step process. We're going to start with the lever close, open it halfway, and then open it completely. And we're going to take each of those notches up just slightly. Now we're going to open it halfway and take this notch up just slightly. And now open the lever completely and just finish off the process. And notice how I'm using literally just the corners of the clipper, maybe just like a tooth or two to get in those tighter areas and removing those dark spots. Repeat that same 3-step process on the other side and you're pretty much done with the fade. Opening up the lever halfway for the second notch. And finally, lever completely open. Now for the touch-up work, I use the half guard, and I usually start with the lever open and just pick at any dark areas that I see. And doing this touch-up work is what really does refine the fade. For this, there is no one size fits all. I mean, every client is different, and just even from one side to the other side is different. So you're just gonna have to use lever play and take your time with it. Now using my trimmer in this position and removing the bottom hair, and what this is gonna do is just gonna get a lot closer to the scalp and give us almost a guideline so we know how high up to take the shaver. But of course this does create a faint line, so turn your trimmer around and finish blending that in. Now just remove that bottom hair, and you'll see as you remove it completely, you're gonna see a faint line. And like I said, that's exactly how high we're gonna take the shaver up to. And there's that faint line that I was speaking of. And of course, repeat the process on the opposite side. As you approach that faint line, you want to use your electric shaver as if it was a clipper, using mainly just the corners, just to ensure that we don't create another guideline or anything above that. Just giving the back a little V shape to really enhance the look of the mohawk. And I've mentioned this before, make sure you are going out of your way and asking your client if he would like to do anything with his facial hair, eyebrows, and of course shave off any nose hair or ear hair that they could potentially have. Here we're going to clip the front out of the way just so we can leave that when we style the mohawk. And we're just going to start at the middle and work our way to the sides on the edge up. Adding a little bit of shave gel just to ensure that we don't give them no razor burn. And starting with the grain, and we're going to follow that by shaving against the grain. Using your opposite hand to help stretch the skin to ensure a smoother and softer shave. And I always use my hair dryer when I'm dusting my client off, especially at the very end. You want to make sure that they can get up off of your chair and go about their day. Here I'm just going to damp it and getting it ready to blow dry. Using high heat to really add as much volume as possible. And then we're going to follow that with the cool shot and closing that cuticle once we get the desired look. Here I'm just using a little bit of matte pomade and running it through the hair completely. Finishing off this haircut with a little bit of enhancements. Again, the link is in the description down below for this tool. Here's the before in case y'all forgot, and here's the after, guys. A faux hawk fade, or a burst fade as some call it. I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial. Please let us know down in the comments something that y'all learned or something that y'all want to see in the future. As always, guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Till next time, peace.